Hey y'all, my name's Megan. I'm a homeschool mom of 2, and welcome to Bold School. It is still very, very cold here, you guys. Like, winter, please be gone, all right? And I have got to tell you that this morning I am feeling fabulous, and that's really only because I'm coming out of like a winter fog, like haze, like I don't know, it's supposed to be close to 50 one day this week, and with it, my mental clarity is returning. Or is it? You be the judge based off of what you see here. Happy Black History Month, y'all. I'm really excited for today's video because I'm going to be sharing with you guys a ton of resources that we will be using to celebrate Black History Month in our homeschool. I'm also going to share with you the specific areas that we will be focusing on this month, give you some suggestions for other videos, and also just, just like gab about history because it's my favorite thing to do. If you watched my video on our goals or intentions for the year of 2022, which I'll link up above, then you'll know that we chose 3 words to describe our year. And one of those words was hope. And we have decided to spend an entire year studying various civil rights movements as a way of finding hope through struggle, because the last 2 years I have been struggling, and I am hoping that you guys find some inspiration out of that. So this year for Black History Month, we are focusing on the civil rights movement, which really felt like a natural continuation of our conversation that we started last month with studying Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And then we will just kind of roll into looking at the civil rights struggle for women's suffrage in the United States next month for Women's History Month as well. All that being said, I am so excited to really talk to you about the specific civil rights movement sort of event that we will be discussing in our homeschool this year. But first, before we get into the juicy little resources and tidbits, I want to talk about the history of Black History Month, because you know that I find everything very fascinating, and the history of Black History Month, oh man, there's a mouthful, is exceptionally interesting as well. So let's talk about it. The celebration of Black History Month originates from the work and dedication of a man named Carter G. Woodson. Now, Carter G. Woodson was an American historian and actually the second Black individual to ever graduate from Harvard University. After graduation, he was incredibly frustrated at the lack of interest that white academia really had in pursuing Black history. He was denied entry into several academic historical groups, and so he decided, you know what, we need to expand and open up the field of Black history, and if no one else is going to do it, he decided he was the man. So in 1926, he created the first celebration of Black history known as Negro History Week, which was in the February of that year. Now, from there, the history of Black History Month, really we need to take a leap in time to 1969, looking at Kent State University. They're a collaborative group of both Black educators and Black students got together, and I would say added more life to Black History Month, making it, popularizing it, and by 1970, the February of 1970 was really, if you want to say, the first Black History Month celebrated at an academic university. Now from there, it just really increased in popularity, and within a decade, by 1976, we have then President Gerald Ford, I believe, who is establishing Black History Month as an official celebration. And what's really cool about looking at the celebration of Black History Month in 1976 is it was the country's bicentennial. And if you've never looked at the celebration of the bicentennial in 1976, it's wild. Basically anything and everything that could be turned into a piece of Americana was, including toilet seats. If you find a $2 bill from 1976, that has a little extra value there for you. And really, this is unrelated, and I'm not trying to point fingers, but if you ever want to kind of make yourself chuckle, then you could Google a video of Gerald Ford wearing a full 1970s plaid suit, kind of tumbling down the stairs of Air Force One. You know what? I'm not even going to make you Google it. I think I'm going to put it right here in this video because it gives me a little laugh, because that's how mature I am, is sometimes videos of people falling down, yeah, it makes me laugh. All right, anyways, let's get into the resources that I have to share with you guys for celebrating Black History Month. So I said earlier in the video that we will be looking at the civil rights era of American history. And I would really say that civil rights is something that is an ongoing era, but when we're talking from a historical perspective, generally speaking, curriculums will break decades into chunks and give them names based off of the major historical characteristics of that decade. So for example, if we are looking at the time before World War I, when there was a ton of progressive movements in America, we call that the progressive era. And because the 1950s and 60s is such a time period for really dramatic civil rights actions happening and changes occurring, that time period is called the civil rights era, and that is what we're looking at specifically. So the first resource that I have for you is our read aloud for this month. And this is What is the Civil Rights Movement? And this is one of those, I think they're generally referenced as the Big Head books. And this one was written by Sherry L. Smith. Now, we used one of these last month for looking at Dr. Martin Luther King. And to be honest, when I purchased them, I got them in a 2-pack. And this was a perfect extension for going into Black History Month and the study of the civil rights era. I really like these books because they give you a pretty detailed outline or timeline of the period, like a linear history, but it also has a lot of little sort of inserts that give you more information in terms of contextual history around the time period. So for example, this book has a little insert about the role that televisions played in the civil rights movement. Because Americans had more access to visually seeing what was going on, it increased empathy for the Black civil rights movement and really mobilized a larger portion of the American population than had previously been engaged in the civil rights struggle. What I like about this one specifically is that there's a pretty detailed outline in the back timeline looking at the civil rights movement, and there are also several pages of actual photographs of the era. This is a really interesting time period to look at, yes, from a historical perspective, but also at the media that's available to us. Because of the proliferation and popularity of photography and then television, we just have so much actual visual data to look at and use for studying this time period. Now, in addition to using this book to really establish a pretty firm timeline for the civil rights era, we are going to be talking about a specific civil rights campaign known as the Children's Campaign or the Children's March. Now, if you're not familiar with this, don't worry, because I'm going to tell you about it. Of course I know. The Children's Campaign is a civil rights movement that took place in the spring of 1963 in Birmingham, Alabama. Now, if you're not familiar, Birmingham, Alabama is widely considered to be one of the worst cities in terms of segregation and racial violence towards the civil rights movement in the 1960s. By May of 1963, the children, Black children of Birmingham, Alabama, really being witness to the violence and events taking place, as well as having violence put upon them in terms of segregation, felt the frustration just like their parents or peers. And by May of 1963, they organized a series of marches. And that actually led to the arrest of 3,000 children as young as 9 years old. We really want to highlight this movement in our homeschool and talk about it specifically because I think it's really powerful to teach children that they are agents of change. They don't need to wait until they grow up. They can really change the world now. in the present. So to pursue and really discuss this particular element of the civil rights movement, we will be using a documentary from the Learning for Justice Institution, which I really, really love. You can go back and listen to my video on Martin Luther King Jr., where I discuss how I used this resource when I was a public school teacher. Anyways, one of the documentaries that they produced is called Mighty Times, the Children's March. And you can access that for free on YouTube, but you can also request a free copy and teaching materials from the Learning for Justice website. The documentary itself is less than 45 minutes in length, and what makes it so good is that it uses a combination of live footage from the times, reenacted footage, as well as interviews from the children who marched themselves. Of course, they are now adults, but it's just really inspiring to hear them firsthand talk about their experiences of participating in this movement as children. Now, the website really suggests that the documentary is good from 6th to 8th grade, right, as sort of an introductory point. I, as an adult, found it incredibly compelling and will actually be using it with my 7-year-old because I'm comfortable with discussing these issues. The documentary itself really does a great job of handling the sensitive topics with just like a lot of honor and academic integrity as well. It's just a really, really cool documentary, and it's something that we are going to use repeatedly over the years. This is not a resource that I think, oh, we use it this one time, this magical moment, and then we never readdress. No, it is something that I will continuously use. If you are using it with older children, the Learning for Justice website has an entire lesson plan that they use with the documentary, which is really a series of questions and activities. We are just going to be watching the documentary and using it as part of a conversation, right, about those time periods and what the events looked like. The next resource that I want to share with you guys that has been absolutely phenomenal is the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture. We have been using their website to really investigate or go through anything you want to know about Black history in America. This website has it. It's beautifully presented, absolutely well done, and they have a series of online events that are just chef's kiss. Now, the one that we've really been using and has been fabulous is the Joyful Fridays, which are actually online events for kiddos. Now, you do have to register, but they are absolutely free, and they are also interactive. So, for example, the Friday of the posting of this video in 2022, we are going to be looking at the museum, but also us as a homeschool. We'll be looking at the life of Granville T. Woods and the roller coasters. So Granville T. Woods, a roller coaster engineer, we will be talking about roller coasters, his life, and then building a miniature roller coaster sculpture. What is also really great about this particular series, you can go back and watch past ones. So if you're like, hey, I really wanted to see that, but it's past the 18th or the 18th doesn't work for us, you can go back and watch those events. You can also look at the selection of suggested supplies so that you are ready for the events when they take place, and really just enjoy them when it's right for you guys. I feel like with homeschoolers, we'll always be like, oh, that sounds great, but then something happens and it's like, whatever. Have you ever tried organizing like a group of homeschoolers? Oh my goodness. There's a group of people that, I don't want to call us flakes, but yeah, we be flaky sometimes. Past events include things like looking at the work and life of Maya Angelou, as well as creative abstract artists. It's a really cool website. I absolutely suggest that you go check it out, and I will, of course, have it linked below. If you are looking for additional resources about the civil rights movement for your kiddos, I would highly suggest that you check out Misty's video from Teach Them Fun. I'm going to put a card up above and also link it down below. She has an entire video that is about kid-friendly resources looking at civil rights issues in America. What I really love about that video is she includes several different elements about civil rights. That includes like economic inequality as well as looking at race racial inequality, and it's actually that video that sent me towards the Melody 1963 series. So you guys should for sure check it out if you're looking for additional books. You guys, I am trying to film this video with the kiddos in the house by myself, so it is taking me a long time to get through, and you can see I'm just going to show the top of her little head that I actually have a little co-host with me here now. Anyways, another fabulous video that just gives a ton of resources for Black History Month is from Brittany Olga. I'm going to put a card to that video up above and a link down below. I love Brittany's energy. She's high energy, which is probably a lot like me. Can I put myself in that category as well? And her video on Black History Month just gave me so many resources for a unit we're actually going to start next month about the human body. She has so many...
I need much better.
Oh, really?
I need much better.
Yes. She has so many great resource suggestions for looking at Black scientists and the history of Black scientists in America. You guys, I am trying to get through this. It is a little bit distracting in here, but I just have to tell you about this absolutely fabulous resource. Also, in addition to her YouTube videos, Brittany's Instagram is wonderful. I love looking at her stories throughout the day, and she just has so many really cool things going on in her homeschool for Black History Month this year. All right, you guys, that's all I really have for you today. I encourage everyone to just get out there, have a wonderful Black History Month, dive into those Smithsonian resources, and let's just, you know, make better history, right? I hope you guys can hear that. I have a little guest just chattering away. Where does she get it, right? Behind the camera of this video. Really? So is it perfect? No, baby. And it was never going to be. But is it done for today? Yeah, it is. Can you imagine living in this house? I created two little girls who love to chat just as much as I do. This is non-stop for me. Ah! Y'all have a good one. Thank you so much. Bye.